It's week 5 of the fantasy football season, and if you're looking for the quarterbacks that deliver the cleanest balls and the tightest of all ends in the NFL, you've clicked on the right video, because today, week 5 rankings for quarterbacks and tight ends. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Hopefully everyone's doing well out there, where now we're starting to have to worry about bye weeks a little bit. Here in week 5, we have no Justin Herbert at your disposal. But this is going to be our last rankings video that we drop here prior to Thursday Night Football this week. So if you're still looking for flex rankings, kicker rankings, defense rankings, remember, those are a member perk. You can get them by hitting that little blue join button here just underneath the video. But now we're diving right into the rankings, and we're starting with quarterbacks, going through my top 24 in week 5. And welcome back to the top of the list, Patrick Mahomes. He finds himself right here at number 1 in a bounce-back game. After a poor week 4, now he gets the poorest Minnesota Vikings defense. He's at number 1. Number 2, this is where I have Josh Allen. A great matchup for him against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are going to be across the pond in London, though. Number 3, this is where I have Lamar Jackson. He's got that backyard football game fired up, and he's putting up fantasy points in bunches. Now he gets to go up against Pittsburgh that really can't stop anyone as of late. Number 4, this is where I have Jalen Hurts in a matchup that could be pretty high scoring, going back and forth against a Los Angeles Rams offense, which could be at full strength. Which will then take us down to number 5. This is where I have Tua Tagovailoa of the Miami Dolphins in a great matchup for him, going up against a New York Giants team that just seems like it's in total disarray right now. Tua and that offense looking for a bounce back this week got him at number 5. Number 6, this is where I have Anthony Richardson of the Indianapolis Colts, another great matchup this week for him, going up against Tennessee. Now, the Tennessee defense looked pretty good against Joe Burrow, or did Joe Burrow just look bad? They're still an overall below average secondary. I like Anthony Richardson, got him at number 6. Then at number 7, this is where I have KIRK Cousins, who was slowed down last week in Carolina and now gets a fairly difficult matchup once again this week, going up against an underrated Kansas City Chiefs defense. But when you have as many weapons as KIRK Cousins does, we're hoping for an offensive shootout here. I got him at number 7. Number 8, Jordan Love. He should have more opportunity to utilize Christian Watson this week. And pairing him up with Romeo Doubs in a matchup going up against Las Vegas with a banged up offensive line where the running game could be struggling, I got Jordan Love at number 8. Number 9 then, and this one may be a little bit spicy. This is where I have CJ Stroud of the Houston Texans. Currently, my offensive rookie of the year. The guy is playing absolutely balls out, but he's got a tough matchup going up against an underrated Atlanta Falcons secondary. AJ Terrell playing on a different level, but with the amount of options that CJ Stroud has and the way that he's been playing, I got to put him at number 9. Number 10, this may be a little bit high for some people. Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia, way easier to throw on than they are to run on, and we could have the return of Cooper Kupp to go alongside Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell and Tyler Higbee. Yeah, Matthew Stafford could put up some solid numbers. I got him at number 10. Which will then take us on to number 11, and it's Sam Howell. And a lot of people are like, how can Sam Howell be this high? But if you take away that one bad game that he had this year against Buffalo, the guy's averaging like 19 fantasy points per game. And now he gets a matchup at home against the Chicago Bears defense. This could be a breakout week for Sam Howell. I got him at 11. 12, his opponent in that game. It's Justin Fields coming off his best game of the season, and it's not even close. But what we really loved to see last week is that he didn't have to rely on his rushing upside to get you that big game. Over 300 yards passing, multiple touchdowns through the air. Can he do it again this week on the road in Washington? The matchup isn't as great as last week's, but I'm really hoping we can build off that momentum of week 4. Number 13, this is where I have Jared Goff, a tough matchup for him going up against Carolina. A Carolina defense that really quieted the offense of the Minnesota Vikings last week. Can they do the same to Detroit? We know he has Jamison Williams back, but does he get a full set of snaps? Jared Goff at number 13. Which will then take us down to number 14. It's Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars. A very difficult matchup for him going up against Buffalo, but not just that. He's in London once again. Back-to-back London games for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, sure, it's great that they've stayed there for 2 weeks, so they didn't have to travel multiple weeks. However, spending 2 weeks in a foreign country away from your own facilities and your own routine has got to be difficult. I still haven't given up on Trevor Lawrence for the year, but this is going to be another difficult matchup for him this week. Number 15, Holy crap, this is the highest I've ever ranked Josh Dobbs in my life. And he continues to go out there weekly and put up solid fantasy football numbers in a week in which you may be missing your starting quarterback due to a bye week, or maybe you have a struggling stud who's injured. Josh Dobbs and his consistency in a decent matchup against Cincinnati isn't bad. Which will then take us to number 16, which is Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. You know I love myself some do-em-dirty Brock Purdy, but he's got a matchup at home against the Dallas Cowboys. Is the Dallas Cowboys defense really legit, or have they just not been tested yet? We're about to find out. Brock Purdy at 16. Number 17 is where I have Russell Wilson in a matchup going up against the New York Jets. Not the easiest of matchups. We saw this Jets defense kind of hold Patrick Mahomes in check just last week. But I can see the run game slightly struggling this week, allowing Russell Wilson to have to throw the ball, especially if the Jets and Zach Wilson can put some points up on the board against this horrendous Denver defense. Which will then take us down to number 18 is where I have Joe Burrow. He's got a great matchup. Love the matchup for Joe Burrow. He's going up against Arizona on the road in Arizona. We don't know about the availability of T. Higgins just yet, and we also don't really know how healthy is Joe Burrow. They've been saying for weeks that he's getting better and better. However, the play on the field doesn't look any better to anyone. He has hurt fantasy rosters for multiple weeks now, and in my opinion, it's better at this point to maybe go with a safer option until we see him fully healthy. Does that mean that he can go off on our bench at some point? Yes, absolutely it does. And as much as that would suck, it wouldn't suck as much as him scoring 7 fantasy points in your lineup for the 5th straight week. Then number 19 is where I have Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys, a difficult matchup for him going up against the San Francisco 49ers. Dak hasn't been playing bad football, but this defense has been putting points on the board, meaning that Dak doesn't have to throw the ball very much. If he's not throwing the ball very much, he's not racking up fantasy points. That's why right now in a difficult matchup, he's at 19. 20, this is where I have Daniel Jones of the New York Giants in a matchup going up against Miami. Not a bad matchup whatsoever, but what is bad is that offensive line in New York. Until we really see them turn things around in New York, I can't overly trust Daniel Jones. He's at number 20. 21, Jimmy Garoppolo. He's got a matchup at home going up against Green Bay. Jimmy G coming off a week in which he did not play with a concussion. Can he feed the ball enough to Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers to give him a decent fantasy day? I see him more as a safer floor play than a higher upside play. He's at 21. Then 22, this is where I have Zach Wilson, who played the best game maybe of his NFL career just last week. It wasn't really enough, but now he gets a matchup going up against Denver. And this Denver defense is playing historically bad. Does Zach Wilson become an automatic must start? No. If he can build off the momentum of last week, he could be a low-end quarterback too. Got him at 22. 23, this is where I'm actually going to start putting my 2 injured quarterbacks, right? Derek Carr here at 23 in a matchup on the road in New England, and we really saw him hold this offense back last week, dealing with a sprained AC joint. I got him at 23, and then 24. It sounds like the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to try to play Kenny Pickett with a bone bruise in his knee. I don't love that, especially in this matchup going up against Baltimore. But don't you worry, that's just the top 24 quarterbacks for the week. We're still talking about tight ends as well, but we're throwing it over to Kyle.
Oh man, the tight end position this week is not looking great. There's some guys with decent matchups, but for the most part, there's a lot of guys who we may have been relying on recently that just won't get the job done this week. So we need to look for safer options. Let's hop into my top 18 tight ends. Travis Kelce, TJ Hockenson, they're facing each other this week, and they're the top 2 tight ends in the league. Safety, upside, everything you want from both of these guys, they absolutely offer to you. There's nobody that we're playing over them. And if you own Kelce and Hockenson for some reason, trade one. But no, seriously, Kelce and Hockenson right up here, 1 and 2. You can't go wrong with either of them. Some of you might be surprised to see Sam Laporta over Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews might be a little bit of a safer bet this week, but I truly believe that Sam Laporta is going to have higher upside. As I talked about in my start and sit video, the only thing that I'm concerned about with Sam Laporta is that if Detroit gets a pretty decent lead on Carolina in the first half, we just don't see enough of Sam Laporta in the second to hit that ceiling. But if the game can just stay even a little bit closer, then Sam Laporta should have good upside the entire time. Mark Andrews going up against Pittsburgh should be heavily targeted this week and should be one of the top safest tight end options you can grab. Evan Ingram has a really tough game this week going up against Buffalo, but he has been one of the safest tight ends in all of football. He's finished as a top 12 tight end every single week, and he has one of the best averages per game, averaging averaging 8.9 fantasy points per game. Right around 6 receptions, right around 55 to 60 yards is where you're going to find Evan Engram. He hasn't scored yet, but the good thing about Evan Engram is he's not losing you any weeks. Darren Waller has a really good matchup this week, and this will be the last time that we give Darren Waller the benefit of the doubt. Now, here's what's going on with Waller right now. It's not his fault. He's running routes. He's out there on the field. It's not like he's dropping passes when they come his way. It's just Daniel Jones and that offense are not very good. And I'm not going to completely blame Daniel Jones because that offensive line is absolute trash. But given the upside that he has against Miami, we just can't walk away from him yet. Hunter Henry is also going to have a tougher matchup this week going up against New Orleans. But the thing that they're going to have to do in New England this week is get rid of the football. They're going to have to pass. They're going to have to pass it quickly. And Hunter Henry is going to be that guy. If they can find themselves in the red zone, Hunter Henry is going to have some touchdown upside. He doesn't have the highest ceiling of any tight end this week, but he still gets enough targets per game that he brings a nice floor. Zach Ertz disappeared a couple of weeks ago, but he was back last week with another 10 targets, and now he's getting a Cincinnati defense that's had trouble stopping tight ends this season. If Cincinnati's offense can put some pressure on Arizona and actually put up some points this week, Arizona should have to throw the football, and Ertz will get quite a few of those targets. Philadelphia's pass defense has not been as good as what we've seen in the past. They're doing really good on the ground against the run, but they have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to a tight end so far this season. Now with Tyler HIGBEE, there are plenty of other options out there. And if Cooper Kupp is on the field for some reason this week, that probably could end up hurting Tyler HIGBEE. I only got him at number 9 because we don't know exactly how this is going to work out with Puka and Cooper Kupp, Tyler HIGBEE running the football. There's a whole lot of what ifs with this matchup. So for Tyler HIGBEE, I'm just going to be a little bit more cautious with it, and I'm going to leave him here at number 9. Luke Musgrave has been practicing this week, is looking good to clear the concussion protocol and be available on Monday going up against Las Vegas. Las Vegas does not do a good job against tight ends, and Luke Musgrave is definitely going to have some nice upside potential this week with Christian Watson being back and maybe not being as limited as he was last week. Maybe that takes away some targets from Luke Musgrave, but the hope is it opens up the field and it gives him some big play opportunity to help his efficiency, even if the volume isn't there. Now at 11 and 12, we're going to go Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. And now Dawson Knox, I talked about this in the start and sit video. To me, he seems like a little bit of a safer option going up against Jacksonville because I truly believe he's going to find the end zone this week. However, he's popped up on the injury report and we don't exactly know what's going to happen with him. He's limited as of right now. So Dalton Kincaid is going to be here at number 11. Now, if Dawson Knox were to miss for some reason, I will probably bump Dalton Kincaid up a couple of spots. But as of right now, I'm going to leave these guys where they're at. Dalton Kincaid, highest potential volume. Dawson Knox, highest potential touchdown. Now, I didn't include Jonnu Smith in my start and sit video this week because I wanted to do a little bit of digging before I gave you a bunch of feedback on whether or not you should start Jonnu Smith. So if you went to the video looking for more information, you have it now. We're going to go ahead and put Jonnu Smith at number 13 because this week I truly believe we're looking for safe options. And going up against Houston and seeing what Jonnu Smith has done the last couple of weeks, it is a potential for him to continue that here going against Houston. Now, as far as snap percentage goes, when you take a look at Jonnu Smith, it hasn't been all butterflies to start the season. Everyone points to his targets right now. He didn't get any targets in week 1, but in week 2 he was at 6, at week 3 he was at 8, and at week 4 he was at 6 again. Week 4 being his best week yet, going 6 receptions on 6 targets and 95 receiving yards. But when you take a look at his snap percentage, that is why I'm not willing to go crazy on Jonnu Smith as of yet. He only played 50% of the snaps in week 1. It bumped to 67 and 2 and then 72 and 3, but then it dropped all the way back down to 55 last week. That's a pretty high variance of snap percentage for Jonnu Smith right now. And if the Atlanta Falcons run any type of offensive scheme that is not 12 personnel, but they line up Kyle Pitts actually at tight end, that's going to put Jonnu Smith off the field. So just keep that in mind. If you're wanting to jump on Jonnu Smith, it might not be the time to do that as of yet. But if you're looking for a safe play going up against Atlanta, he should still see in the area of 5 to 6 targets. And if he can catch all of those, or at least most of them, hopefully he can give you about 5 to 6 fantasy points. George Kittle and Dallas Goedert, two guys that absolutely balled out last season. Dallas Goedert more at the beginning of the season and George Kittle more at the end of the season, but two guys that haven't done a whole lot of anything this year. George Kittle has one really good game with no Brandon Ayuk. At this point, when you take a look at George Kittle in such a tough matchup, until he starts to perform on a more consistent basis, I think we need to look at some guys that present a little higher upside. For Dallas Goedert going up against the LA Rams, it hasn't been that he's not on the field, because so far this year, he's played 92, 96, 93, and 100% of the snaps taken on offense. But so far this year, he doesn't have a ton to show for it. He had 14 targets in weeks 2 and 3, and it looked like we were on the uptick with him. And then it was back down to 4 targets and a back and forth game with Washington last week. Unfortunately, right now, Dallas Goedert isn't getting many looks. And because of that, he's not offering you much fantasy upside. Jake Ferguson coming off his best week yet, going up against San Francisco this week is going to be a tough matchup. For Jake Ferguson to hit any type of a ceiling this week, he's going to have a touchdown. For Kyle Pitts, I've got him at number 17 right now, going up against Houston. I just don't trust him, and I'm certainly not going to start him. And at the tight end position, absolutely, I would be more willing to risk it with Jonnu Smith right now than I would be for Kyle Pitts. And for Cole Kmet at number 18, I would love to go higher with him, but he's going up against a Washington team that allows the fewest fantasy points per game to the tight end position. And it's not like Joe Schmoes have been running out doing nothing against Washington. It is top shelf tight ends doing nothing against Washington. Zach Ertz in week 1, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox in week 3, Dallas Goedert last week. Cole Kmet, unfortunately, has a really tough matchup in front of him. All right, let's talk about 4 guys on the outside looking in that I don't love their ceiling this week, but definitely a pretty decent floor. Logan Thomas, Dalton Schultz, Hayden Hurst, and Tyler Conklin. Given their respective matchups, each one of these guys definitely could be in line for anywhere from about 4 to 6 targets, but their upside just isn't there. Whether it's because they haven't shown it a lot this season, or there's different variables in play that maybe are going to keep them from reaching that ceiling, all 4 of these guys really to me are emergency options. If you're dealing with a bye this week and you want to grab one of these guys in hopes that they just give you a few points, these are the guys that are going to do it for you. If you're a Kyle Pitts owner and you're just tired of him, even though I have him ranked higher this week and you just don't want to go for it, then maybe you could run with one of these guys that could be potentially a little bit safer. But that's what these 4 options are going to be. If you're dealing with a bye or a guy you just don't want to have in your lineup, then you would take a shot at one of these guys. But if not, then you're just going to leave him on waivers or your bench and we'll go with someone with higher upside. There you have it, Headliner Nation. My tight end rankings mean the end of the ranking episodes for week 5. Keep an eye out on the channel for all types of updates throughout the weekend, though, on our tailgate show on Fridays, our live stream on Saturday nights, and our members only live stream on Sunday mornings. As things update and change throughout the weekend, we'll make sure to keep you updated as well. Headliner Nation, I'm going to get out of here for today, though. Peace out, stay safe, stay healthy. I'll catch you in the live stream on Saturday. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Fantasy Headliners.
I'm a headliner.